The crystalline corridors of Bastion 7 hummed with the low-frequency thrum of gravitational stabilizers. William Chun stood at his post, neural interface flickering data streams across his corneal display, when the anomaly triggered every alarm in his consciousness that a woman walked through the primary security checkpoint as though it didn't exist, not around it. Not with clearance codes. Through it, molecularly phase-shifted through 3-meter-thick titanium-carbon composite doors that required quantum-encrypted authorization from the Admiralty Council itself. Sentinel-4 to command. William subvocalized through his neural link. We have a code obsidian breach at Junction 12 Alpha. The woman continued walking. She wore no uniform, no insignia, just a simple white synth fabric suit that seemed to absorb and reflect light simultaneously. Her dark hair was bound in a practical braid, and her eyes. William's combat augmentations zoomed involuntarily. Her eyes held the peculiar silver sheen of someone who'd undergone deep space neural adaptation. But that wasn't what froze the blood in his veins. Flanking her were 3 creatures that shouldn't exist. They resembled young big cats, lion cubs perhaps, in some distant evolutionary sense, but their fur rippled with bioluminescent patterns that shifted through the visible spectrum and beyond. Their eyes glowed with an intelligence that made William's threat assessment algorithms scream contradictory warnings. Apex predator and sapient entity and technology organic hybrid all at once. Command, do you copy? We have. William's transmission cut off. His neural interface went dead, then rebooted, then displayed something impossible. High Commander access authenticated clearance level. Architect Prime Security Protocol override. Elsa MERIDANSDATUS. William's body moved without his conscious input. His hand, which had been reaching for his plasma sidearm, instead snapped to a salute so crisp it made his shoulder joints ache. Around him, every security officer in the corridor did the same. A synchronized response triggered by override codes embedded so deep in their neural architecture that resisting was neurologically impossible. The woman, Elsa Meridian, paused. One of the cubs sat beside her, its tail curling around her ankle in a gesture that seemed almost affectionate. She turned to look directly at William, and when their eyes met, he felt his consciousness expand in a way that meditation drugs and sensory deprivation tanks had never achieved. Sentinel Chun, she said, her voice carrying harmonics that his audio processors flagged as containing embedded data streams. Walk with me. It wasn't a request. His legs moved before his brain caught up, falling into step 3 paces behind her and to the left, the traditional position for a subordinate officer escorting a superior. The cubs regarded him with those unsettling, luminous eyes, then returned their attention forward. You're wondering what I am, Elsa said as they traversed corridors that progressively became more restricted. Doors opened before her touch. Blast shields retracted. Autonomous defense turrets swiveled to track her movement, then powered down in deference. Ma'am, William's voice cracked. He cleared his throat, accessing his stress regulation subroutines. The database lists you as Architect Prime. That designation was retired 40 years ago when the synthesis project was deemed a failure. One of the cubs made a sound. Not quite a growl, not quite a purr, that resonated in William's chest cavity. The synthesis project didn't fail, Elsa replied. It evolved beyond parameters that the Admiralty Council could comprehend, let alone control. She gestured to the cubs. Meet Triumvirate 7, Triumvirate 8, and Triumvirate 9. They're not bodyguards. They're extensions of a distributed consciousness that spans 17 star systems. William's mind reeled. The synthesis project had been humanity's attempt to create biological quantum computers, living entities that could process information at scales necessary for faster-than-light navigation and multidimensional threat assessment. The official record stated it had produced nothing but biohorrors that had to be mercy-killed. You're networked with them, Williams said, comprehension dawning. You're the human interface for a civilization, Elsa interrupted. One that exists in the spaces between spaces, in quantum foam and dark matter filaments. The cubs are avatars, simplified forms so your limited sensory apparatus doesn't experience existential cascade failure from perceiving what they actually are. They reached a door that William recognized with a spike of adrenaline. The High Admiralty Chamber. Elsa's hand hovered over the biometric scanner, but she didn't touch it. The door opened anyway, its security AI apparently deciding that denying her entry was pointless. Inside, Fleet Admiral Koskinen sat at the obsidian conference table, her face carefully neutral. Beside her, three holographic representations of the other admirals flickered with quantum-entangled real-time feeds from across human space. Elsa, Koskinen said quietly. It's been a long time. 38 years, for months, 17 days, Elsa replied. I've been building infrastructure, preparing humanity for integration. Integration with what? Elsa smiled, and the cub's bioluminescent patterns intensified, filling the room with kaleidoscopic light. With the network we've become, the synthesis didn't create tools, Admiral. It created a bridge between biological consciousness and the quantum substrate of reality itself. William's neural interface suddenly flooded with data, not the sterile military briefings he was accustomed to, but something richer, more complete. He saw star systems transformed by technology that bent causality. He saw human colonists whose descendants had merged with the synthesis, their consciousness distributed across planetary networks while retaining individual identity. He saw threats lurking in the deep black between galaxies, things that made the old nightmares of alien invasion seem quaint. And he saw humanity's choice: remain isolated in their biological shells, or join the network and become something unprecedented in galactic history. You can't force this, Koskinen said. I won't, Elsa agreed. But I can offer it, and protect those who choose to remain separate, because the threats I've seen won't distinguish between networked and isolated consciousness. They'll consume all biological intelligence they encounter. One of the cubs walked to William, pressed its head against his leg. Through the contact, he felt something vast and incomprehensible and strangely gentle, an invitation encoded in sensation rather than language. Sentinel Chun will be my liaison, Elsa announced. He'll help bridge the gap between what you understand and what you need to become. William opened his mouth to protest, but closed it again. In that moment of connection with Triumvirate 9, he'd seen enough to know that refusing wasn't cowardice or bravery. It was simply irrelevant. The universe had changed while humanity slept, and Elsa Meridian had returned to wake them up. The question wasn't whether they'd join her. The question was whether they'd do it in time.